Hey Megan, it's Miss Seymour. I was going to go over your story with you around one cactus. Remember to look at the genre. The genre is narrative nonfiction. That means it tells about real things using elements of stories. This is actually written like a poem, but it tells you a lot of facts. So the purpose of this story, the author's purpose, is to inform you, to give you information in the story about desert animals. On the first page, you see the letter that is written from the western diamondback rattlesnake, and it's written to the two-legged adventurer, which we talked about would be a human. So it's written to us as a human. And it talks about the desert is a topic you can really sink your teeth into. So a topic is a subject. And it talks about how the desert is filled with amazing creatures and incredible plants. On down at the bottom, it says some live high above in lofty apartments. Lofty means high up, like an eagle's nest would be high up in a tree. We talked about how lofty, some people call their attics their loft, and their attic is up in the top part of their house. So lofty means high above. On this next page, it refers to the cactus, and it says here that here stands a cactus tall and grand, a haven for creatures in a waterless land. So we talked about haven means a safe place. So near the cactus, around the cactus, is like a safe place for the creatures in the waterless land or the creatures in the desert. On the next page, you see a boy who is visiting the desert, and it talks about who could be living on this arid ground. Arid means very dry. And then over here, it says that he observed the giant in the fading light. The giant is the cactus. So he's looking at the cactus in the fading light. So it's talking about it's fading into nighttime. It's getting darker. But the critters were resting far from sight. So all the creatures are hiding. But as he turns and walks away, then the creatures woke up to play and prey. So as the boy leaves, the creatures or the animals start coming out. So remember that for your test. On the next page, you see the little rat, the kangaroo rat, and his nest. And then on the next page, it mentions the long-nosed bat. The long-nosed bat flies to this tower and spreads the pollen from flower to flower. That's how the bats help. They spread pollen. That's the way that they help out in the desert. On the next page, you see the rattlesnake and its deadly teeth. And then over here, the scorpions. We talked about the scorpions dancing. It says some scorpions with stinging tails dance along on unseen trails. We talked about scorpions dance because if you've ever poked at a scorpion, or maybe dad or mom have seen a scorpion and they started poking at it with a stick, they'll kind of run around almost in circles or from side to side like they're dancing. And they're talking about unseen trails. The scorpions don't leave much of a trail with their little legs. So we talked about that. And on the next page, we talked about the foxes. The foxes are almost the same color as the desert sand. You can see even in this picture that they're almost invisible against the desert sand because the coloring of the fox looks like the same color as the sand. So it helps them hide. And then the Gila monster on the next one. It's like a big lizard that looks like it has almost been painted. And it is one of the only poisonous lizards. The Gila monster and the Mexican bearded lizard are the only poisonous lizards. So that's important to remember. Finally, back here on the last 2 pages, I have marked some important facts that we talked about in class that you need to remember. Where do all of these animals live? They live in the Sonoran Desert, and it tells you that up here, so make sure you read over all of this carefully before you take your test. This fantastic fact about the cactus, how big it can grow as tall as 56 feet and weigh as much as an African elephant and live to be over 200 years old. That's important to remember. Also on this page, the elf owl. There are several questions on your AR test and your other regular test about the elf owl, so make sure you read over this carefully. We talked about the sound it makes, how it is a high-pitched, squeaky whistle. We talked about how they live in the abandoned nest of Gila woodpeckers. You can see in this picture they live in the cactus, and what they do is they wait for the woodpecker to leave, and then they take over its nest or the hole in the cactus. You also need to know how the owl stays cool, and it is because the moisture stored in the cactus and the thick lining of the nest help the owl stay cool even when the air temperature is over 100 degrees. So study all of those. And also down here we've already talked about the bat, how it spreads pollen from flower to flower, and it actually gets stuck to the bat's face. So that's important to remember. On the last two pages, the rattlesnake, you need to remember that these pits on the rattlesnake's sides of its head are used as temperature detectors to help them locate prey in the dark. And on the last page, the kit fox, we talked about this earlier in the story, how their pale color makes them look nearly invisible against light-colored desert sands. And then the Gila monster and the Mexican beaded lizard are the only two poisonous lizards in the world. So make sure you read over the facts pages because a lot of your test questions do come from these facts pages. Okay, bye Megan. Talk to you later.